All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Ardwan. I'm not sure if I think you can see me right now. So I am going to be your professor for the semester. Please call me Scott. Um, and I think most of you by this time have taken or went to one of Dr. Ayers' courses. So you might know about the format that this class is going to work in. We're going to have several people meeting. Uh, okay. I'm going to unfortunately start over. I'm not sure if what I just said taped over. So I'm Dr. Scott Ardwan, going to be your professor. And please just call me Scott throughout the semester. It's fine with me. Um, we are going to be running this class in a bit of a different format. Dr. Ayers might have told you something similar about his class. So the way this class is going to run is we're going to have some students who will be meeting with us here on campus, and they'll always be here on campus. And we'll have another group of students who will meet with us in Gwinnett. So our classes, or actually, they won't meet with us in Gwinnett. They will watch videos of the class in Gwinnett. And then once a month, the dates I will give you later, they're on the syllabus. You will then meet everyone, people who typically meet here, plus the people who meet in Gwinnett, will then all meet with us here on Wednesdays after you meet with Dr. Kevin Ayers. And we will just have more of an open discussion on those days. So I won't be lecturing on those days. It'll just be a complete open discussion. Um, so I'll just go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself. This is my sixth year here at UGA, or maybe it's my seventh year. But I've been here at UGA for a while now. And before being here, I was taught and got tenure at the University of South Carolina. And I taught in the psych department there, in the school psych program within the psych department there at South Carolina. And then prior to that, I did a postdoctoral work at Louisiana State University, where I had also done my undergraduate work. And prior to that, I spent 5 years in Syracuse, New York, getting my doctorate there. My undergraduate work, as I said, was at LSU because I am a native of Lafayette, Louisiana. The reason I guess, my interest in behavior analysis. Initially, whenever I was at LSU, I started developing an interest and actually did some work with kids with ADHD. There's this great research by Dr. Don Northup that I had the pleasure of being involved in, where we were doing functional analysis type work with children with ADHD. That was some of the first functional analysis work that was done with kids with ADHD in more of a applied type setting. We ran those sessions during the summer. But anyhow, had interest from there, and then I went off to Syracuse University and worked with Dr. Brian Martins, who's just an exceptional professor, an exceptional researcher, and everything. I was really lucky to work with him, and I did a lot of work while there at Syracuse, working in special education classrooms and helping special education and regular education teachers engage in more effective classroom behavior management. So my thesis actually looked at the ability of children with ADHD to discriminate their medication status. And then my dissertation, I did some training of kids with ADHD to discriminate their medication status. Um, I did a project in between, which if you take my 7320 course next semester, you'll probably read. But in that course, I was looking at using what we call behavioral momentum to increase students' compliance and decrease the amount of time they were transitioning from one activity to the next. Behavioral momentum is a type of, essentially, Simon says, but we'll talk about that whenever you take 7320. So my majority of my work after I left Syracuse actually sort of moved away from what a lot of people would consider your typical behavior analytic work. And I started doing a lot of work with a measure known as curriculum-based measurement, as well as doing a lot of work related to improving students' reading fluency. Um, and the reason we have this course within our ABA sequence, our BC, it's a required course within the BCBA course sequence, is that I treat academics and academic interventions probably a good bit differently than a lot of people, and therefore I teach it a bit differently than maybe a lot of people might. Um, so I see a word as a stimulus, and what we want people to, or we see a stimulus as is somewhat, you see a stimulus, and seeing that stimulus lets you know that reinforcement is or is not available. So you see the word happy, and you say the word happy because you know you will be reinforced for saying the correct word happy when that word is presented. You don't say dog when you see the word happy. You say the word happy when you see the word happy. And essentially, all academic tasks amount to that. We see a stimulus, and we need to engage in the appropriate behavior whenever we see that stimulus. Um, so that's really how I see academics, and that's how I'm going to be teaching this course is how do we do that. I have actually started going into this new field of, not new field of research, but a new avenue of research for myself, but also it's pretty new for the field. I have started doing eye tracking, using eye tracking technology to evaluate the impact of intervention on students' reading behavior and how reading interventions improve students, it changed students' eye movement. So the way I see it is, prior to my research, most of the eye tracking literature, almost probably exclusively eye tracking literature out there with reading, was using was being done with adults, and they talk about cognitive processing and all these things that we really never ever mention whenever we're talking about behavioral analysis. So whenever you take your BCBA exam, you're not going to see the word cognitive processing on the BCBA exam. But the way I use the eye tracker is a way to measure behavior in ways that we never have measured it before. So using an eye tracker, I can measure the exact amount of time that a child spends on a word. I can see whenever I use an eye tracker how the child's eyes move. If I present some difficult words, does it make child go back to previously read information? If I present difficult words, one of the things that we see is it's more likely to get the child to stop reading. So, there's different, we can use that eye tracker as another means of measuring behavior. And I'm doing that and doing it this way because I see those words that are presented on a page as stimuli to which we're trying to get our students to engage in the correct response whenever presented with those stimuli. So that's a little bit in a nutshell about me. I guess from a personal standpoint, I am married. I have two great kids. My daughter just started kindergarten this year, and my son is a happy third grader and is doing well with his in third grade, and actually, I think starting to get a lot more homework than he had been accustomed to in the years with that before. But at this point, he's really excited about getting that homework. Just I think a little bit more as me as a person. I'm pretty relaxed in class, and I enjoy joking around. I enjoy learning about my students, not only about their academics, but just sharing our stories. And if those of you who have taught before, I really enjoy you all bringing those examples, experiences into class. But also, please be aware that we have a lot to get done. And so that's one thing. Just to those stories oftentimes can help, and I actually like a lot of times to use your experiences in the class to say, well, how might we do this differently, or how might you consider looking at that differently now that you have learned this new information. So we'll be using your experiences in class to, if you've had some, to I guess make our discussions a little bit more applied. For those of you who haven't been in the class, could easily apply what you've learned to the to your classroom whenever you get there. I think that's probably going to be about it for me right now, or about me. I will like to learn a little bit about you all whenever we start class next Thursday, or whenever that Thursday is going to be. Let me tell you why I'm doing this as opposed to meeting in class. I'm actually as you're watching this, I'm leaving on Sunday to go to Wisconsin-Madison to receive some training from, I think it goes from 8 to 5:45 Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday it goes from 8 to 12, and then at 1 o'clock on Friday I start another type of training, and that goes from 1 to 5 on Friday, then from 8 to 12 on Saturday. So I'm receiving a training while in Wisconsin, and it's all dealing with single subject design, which I'm actually going to present a little bit of information on single subject design tonight. So with all of that said, I am now going to share my screen, and I am going to pull up our syllabus for this class. Now, I will say that this is a draft syllabus. So again, this is a draft syllabus. Um, I will just right now put so you can realize, make sure you're understanding and hearing what I'm saying. This is a draft syllabus, and it's a draft syllabus because one thing I want to do is have some discussions with you all to sort of see where you are in regards to understanding what RTI is, understanding what fluency is, and a few just issues like that, where your experiences have been in the past, to be able to best know what kind of readings I might need to have for you all, if there's any that I need to change, to see how familiar you might be with research, and reading research articles, and just also, Dr. Ayers and I have not had a lot of time to discuss how we're going to be handling everything in regards to those classes that we're going to be doing differently. So I'm going to discuss that with him a little bit more. So again, my name, just kind of starting here on this page, my name is Dr. Ardoin, or Scott Ardoin. Please call me Scott. Actually, this is wrong. I forgot to change this. I am now, as of August, actually today, August 15th, I am now a full professor. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. My office is in 325 Adderhold, Office L, and my office hours are from 3:30 to 4:45. But sometimes, to be honest with you, I might not always be here because people rarely ever come to my office hours. But if you tell me that you want to come to my office hours, I will be here. So what I'm saying is I'm not that great. I might not be here if you just sort of stop by. But if you say, Dr. Ardoin or Scott, next week I really I really like to meet with you, I will be here during that time for you. I also am happy to be here at other times. I am here almost every day from about 8 in the morning to 5:45, 6 o'clock at night. So if you have another class in here, however I can meet your best meet your schedule. I really, even if you just want to come and talk to me so I get to know you better as a student and as a person, I am happy to talk to you. I think you're doing a disservice to yourself if you don't get to know your professors a little bit better. So please, please, please feel free to come and talk to me whenever you have problems, concerns with class or a topic. Um, I've had many of students who are teachers who meet with me separately for the sole purpose of us, looking at data from the child that they're working with and designing some interventions. So if you have any of those needs, I'd be very, very happy to discuss it. The only thing to be wary of, if you do that, there's a good chance I might be discussing that case, never names, but might be discussing that case in class, just as a good example. So with that statement in mind, if you are a teacher or if you have taught before, one thing never ever to do is use the name of a child in my classroom or anyone else's classroom for that matter. Yes, you were in a public school setting and you were in a public school class, or even if it was private, but you were never to be able to talk about the academic performance of one of your students or someone else's student while in class. Just you don't talk about that publicly. That is private information, so make sure to keep it that way. So you can talk, a kid in my class did such and such, and you wanted to give him a fake name so it's easier to talk about. That's perfectly fine, but please never use their real name. Okay? You never know, even if you're from someplace else, if someone in class might have some sort of connection to that kid. So never, ever, ever use a kid's name in class or an adult's name. Okay? So the course goals and objective is for you to develop an understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of fluency-based interventions and assessment procedures, for you to develop proficiency in the administration and interpretation of curriculum-based measurement data. A lot of you, if you're not in the schools already, if you have a CBM which is a lot of times I just refer to it as that, and that stands for curriculum-based measurement. CBM is widely used in schools, especially schools adopting a curriculum-based, adopting an RTI procedure. If you curriculum-based measurement, however, CBM was actually developed initially by Stan Dino and some of his students up in the University of Minnesota, and their purpose in developing CBM was really for special education teachers to give them some easier ways to be able to collect data. Um, so it's really, if you're planning on being a special education teacher, um, even though now your schools might be using it school-wide, CBM was developed for special education teachers. It's ideal for using for monitoring students' IEP goals. I'll talk about some problems with CBM measures, but I think it's actually pretty useful for measuring IEP goals. Another thing is for for students to gain an understanding of how to conduct assessments that lead to the identification of individual students' specific skills, strengths, and skill deficits. So it's not just about identifying their strengths, their weaknesses. It's also about identifying their strengths. You cannot develop an effective intervention if you don't know what the kid's skills, what skills the student has and does not have. It's just sort of like we shouldn't develop a behavioral intervention for a behavioral problem without knowing why the student's engaging in that problematic behavior. We shouldn't develop an academic intervention without knowing why that kid's having difficulties in that academic area. Another goal is for you to gain an understanding of the fundamental components that result in students learning new skills and mastering acquired skills. So I'll talk to you. I have brief experimental analysis. That actually might be one of the classes that we cut out some, or we make it very, very brief. But so that would be some of the skills you develop and understand that a little bit, but then also developing knowledge of how to monitor intervention effects using single case designs. Then we can develop an understanding of the components of the response to intervention models along with their strengths and limitations, and develop a wide-based knowledge of existing evidence-based academic interventions for helping students to acquire and generalize what they learn in the classroom. The attendance policy is, so after 2 missed classes, students' final grade will be dropped 1 letter. After 3 missed classes before midterm, students will be assigned a grade of F. Grade of withdrawal passing with a W. If your students missed 4 or more classes sessions before the end of the semester, you'll be assigned a withdrawal with a WF, withdrawal with failing. Doctor's notes will be accepted for excused absences, or will provide you with the excused absences. However, the dates need to match, so don't give me, if you're that sick you can't come to class, you really need to be going to the doctor's office. Don't give me a doctor's note that's 3 days later. Students are excused for religious holidays, of course. However, it's required that you notify me in advance. Religious holidays do not change from between now and whenever. They're not going to change. Also, in regards to saying that, the dates that I have for the exam are not going to change, bearing there's not some sort of I don't know, school closure or whatever last year that really messed things up with all of our snow days. But if there are no type of school closing or university closing, then those exams will be held on the scheduled dates that I have scheduled in the syllabus. So you need to look at those dates and account for that and think for that for when planning for the rest of the semester. If you know that you have some sort of event, your class is going to be you're working in some sort of class and they're going on a field trip that day, and you won't be getting back until later that night or whatever it might be, you need to let me know now. You should have that scheduled and you can figure that out now. So look at the dates that are on my calendar and consider that for the rest of the semester. Promptness is expected. Please do not show up late for class continuously. If it happens once or twice, that's okay, but do not let it be something that's going to occur on a regular basis because it disturbs class. Please be considerate of others. Repeated tardiness could result in a reduction of your grade or withdrawal from the class. I follow the same academic honesty policy that is established by the University of Georgia, so I'll just let you read that on yourself, on your own. Um, so I know a lot of us have multiple email addresses these days. Um, I will be using email regularly. You need to make sure that the emails I'm sending you are going to your Gmail account or whatever account you might be using if you have some sort of elementary or you work in a school district and you check that one regularly. But when have things sent to it from other accounts, you might want to make sure that you have it the emails from me and emails from ELC unblocked so that to make sure that you are getting the emails. I will not accept as an excuse that I sent it to you, but it was in a trash box or something of that nature. You need to make sure you are getting the emails that I sent you. I will I regularly send emails out just with various bits of information. So please be aware of that. Focus. So expectation 2 is for you to focus on how to do your best, be your best, and to learn as much as humanly possible, as opposed to how you can get out of doing work. I have had students in the past, not many, but some students who I really feel that if they would put the same amount of effort into uh, into engaging in classwork and doing the work as they spend in trying to get out of class get out of classwork that they would have achieved and accomplished the classwork. Please just try to do your best with classwork and do your best at all times in regarding to the readings and so on. Some of you are teachers. Uh, I understand there will be sometimes you have to miss events and so on. Just let me know ahead of time. But the other point really want to make with regards to teachers is, think about what you would do or how you would feel as a teacher if someone said or did what you are saying or doing to me. Please just think about that and put it in terms of if a kid said it to you, and would you accept that as an excuse or a reason? There are several things that have occurred to me, and I want to say to the person, what if your third grader said that to you? How would you react? How would you feel? Would you feel they were disrespecting you? So please consider that. Seek assistance from your professor, which is me, or peers when you're in need. But I am going to provide you with the more reliable answer. So, it's okay when you're obviously not a test question. You shouldn't be asking your peers, but you can seek the advice or thoughts of your peers. But if there's really something you're confused about, if there's you think I said something and now seem to be saying it differently, please just ask me. I won't be offended. Just ask me and I will try to clarify it. I make mistakes, so I want you to be sure you ask me whenever you can. Realize that what I do for one, I must do for all. So I can't give one person extended time to turn something in because they've been having a rough 2 or 3 days, because we all frequently have rough 2 or 3 days. I can't, if I if I accept or make a change for you, I really need to make it for the rest of the class. Now, with that said, if you're having challenges, please do talk to me about it. Um, if it's something that if you've been having this challenge over the last 3 days and the exam is on Thursday and it started on Monday, but you don't say anything to me until you show up in class on Thursday or until Wednesday night late when you realize you haven't studied enough, that'll be a problem. If you contact me earlier than that, then I can probably work things out with you. So again, I'm a pretty reasonable person, but you need to think, and again, think about if you had a student, how would you expect them to deal with that situation in discussing it with you? Um, so please assist your peers in being their best. Number 5 is please assist your peers in being their best by doing your own reading, by asking questions, and being willing to share the information that you know. Class will be so much more enjoyable if you participate. One of the reasons that Kevin and I have switched the format this year with those of you with people in Gwinnett is because I think last year it really just we did not get. I was very excited when the semester started because we had those individuals from Gwinnett and they had class experiences and experiences I thought they would be able to share with us in class, but just due to technology, it just never worked out, and it was really frustrating. And I think it ended up shortening our class frame, so I had to try to rush and get information through, and we just did not have the amount of discussion that I would have liked. And I am willing to. If we get into a good discussion, at some point I might say, okay, we really have to get some material covered, but I am willing to miss covering some material in order for us to have a really good class discussion. So please, please, please ask questions. Please contribute to class. It makes my life as an instructor so much easier, and just it makes it much, much more enjoyable to be in front of the class and talking whenever it's obvious that the rest of the class is attending. So you might have noticed if you've already skimmed through the syllabus that I don't think I don't have any books set aside for you to read. There are some chapters that you'll read, but I've actually copied those chapters and put them in Dropbox. So you do not have, there's not a book for class, but there are a good number of readings, a really, really good number of readings for you. So I can provide you with the basic information, but I think the articles can expand upon that. And then it also just gives me a base. The articles also give me a base from which I can go forth with. So the purpose of these articles are not simply for you to fulfill the requirements of saying you've read an article and you've done that work, but the purpose of these articles are for you to learn from them. Use the information below. So in trying to make you learn from them or encouraging you to learn from them, and that you're not just flipping, reading the pages, and 3 pages into it, you say, "Gosh, what did I just finish reading? I don't remember anything from what I've said already." And but continuing to go on anyway. If that happens to you, I'm really expecting you to flip back those 2 or 3 pages and start over to make sure that you're picking up from the information. In order to do that and to encourage that sort of behavior, I am, excuse me, I ask you all to write article critiques. So for every article for every week of class, for 2 of the articles of each week, you're going to have to write a critique. So 1 critique for each of 2 articles. So there might be 4 articles for a week. You're supposed to read all 4 articles, but you choose which 2 you would like to write a critique on. Now I say a critique because I don't want it to just be a summary. I have read the article. I will read the articles again, and I have actually already read all of the articles that are currently on your list at least probably 3 times, and I will read them again before class, or at least skim them very, very heavily before class. I know these articles. So I don't need you to summarize these articles for me. I need you to give me what your thoughts are on the article. How does this relate to something that you read before? How does this relate to things going on in your classroom? Does this tell you that you're doing something you've been doing in your classroom wrong? Does this contradict something that you learned from another classroom, or that the Common Core suggests is, we're doing such and such based upon the Common Core, but based upon these readings, we're doing the wrong thing. So what are so related to the class? You could relate it if you might have a kid and your kid is just being presented or taught something. So how does it relate to the way you see your kid progressing or learning? It might be that it contradicts or is consistent with something else. It brings another article we've read, and it brings that other article up into mind, so you can think about that sort of thing. So I want some deep thought. I do not want a summary of what you've read. I have read the article before. So attend to the format of the article with some other pieces of information. So attend to the format of the articles that you read. This will guide you in your future writing. So some of you are working on will have to write applied project or something to that nature, and having paying attention to the way articles are written is going to help you to write your own article later on, or to write your applied project or your thesis or your dissertation. Allow the introduction to provide you with an overview of the literature. Think about the limitations associated with the methods of the study in regards to implications to practice. Could any of this be pulled off in practice, or is this completely ridiculous? It's a question they ask, and yeah, it's interesting from a researcher standpoint, but it has no I see no application to practice from what I've just read, and just explain that. Are the analyses properly conducted? So you don't have to answer each of these questions for every article. These are just some ideas for you. So you don't have to be a stats genius for answering whether the analyses were properly conducted. Many or a lot of you are currently taking some sort of stats course, or you have some basic understanding of single subject design, so you might be able to address it in one of the some of the limitations from a methodological standpoint or a statistical standpoint. Did the authors understand or I'm sorry, over or under interpretate the interpreted I'm sorry. Did the authors over or under interpret the results? Sometimes authors get very excited what they think about what they think they've done, and they make big statements about some data that actually it's nowhere in there. What are the future directions for this line of research? So what might be the next study that could come from this, or given this information, do you have an idea that you'd like for them to do next, or that you could possibly do next? So what are the applications of the findings to practice and research also? And then apply what you learned to your existing knowledge regarding this and other lines of research. Okay, so now we'll talk about the class requirements. So there's going to be for just submitting the articles, there are 12 classes, I believe, for which you will get credit of just having submitted the article or not. So I have listed next to each group of articles. So for instance, I'll scroll down here. So for 828, there are several articles listed there. Prior to 5 o'clock on 828, regardless of how you're taking this class, you need to have submitted you need to submit 2 article critiques to me by 5 o'clock, not 5:01, not 5:03, but 5 o'clock. You are having to be in class for 5 o'clock, so you should not be submitting these while you're sitting in that class unless you're getting there at 3:30 and reading, or you should have read the articles, but you're getting there at whatever time and writing the critiques before submitting them to me, which is unlikely, or you might be coming from someplace else in Adderhold. But my point is, you need to get these things into me prior to 5 o'clock. There are 12 classes for which articles must be read, and therefore a total of 24 points that you can get from here. Failure to turn in a critique will result in a score of 0% credit. So if you fail to turn in 8 of the 24 critiques you're supposed to turn in, then you get a 0. Most articles are available via Dropbox link, which I have or will provide to you. So never provide the excuse that you were not able to download an article, or it was not present in the Dropbox. If I have failed to upload an article, or if you cannot get it from the library, you need to discover that prior to the night before class. Download articles ahead of time so that this is not a problem. Many or most of the readings can actually be assessed through the library as well. So in addition to looking at just do you turn in articles or not turn the articles in, there will be 6 points for just the quality of your article critiques. So every week I will select a random number of articles, and I will go ahead and score them based upon their quality. And I'll give them a score of 1 if it's just sort of obvious from the article that you read the article but you gave it very little thought. A 1.5 for a nice summary of what was discussed but does not provide any insight beyond what is simply stated in the article or chapter. A score of 2 for information presented within the critique makes it obvious that the student thought about the content of the article or the chapter. And so you can sort of get at some bonus points here. I'll give you a 2.5 if it's a quality question, point, or criticism is made about the article, or the critique provides a quality synthesis of information within the article with either information learned in class, information from another article, or from another class. So I will grade a minimum of 3 of these. So you could possibly, if you got all three, 7.5 points from all 3 of the articles of yours that I grade, you could actually earn 7.5 points out of 6. So you could get a 1.5 bonus there. I will be using these though to also just sort of figure out what questions and such you all have in class. So whenever I get good ones, I will oftentimes read them out loud in class and address the questions or the thoughts made by the person in class. Probably the first 2 sets of questions you all turn into me, I won't grade or score them I'll score them using that rubric, but I'll give you feedback and I'll let you replace that score with a future score that I can give you if you don't like it. So just saying, I'll give you feedback on some articles before really taking them seriously and grading them. Okay. Then you will have 20 midterm exam that will be for 25 points, and that will be an oral midterm exam. You did hear me correct. That's an oral midterm exam instead of a written midterm exam. I just find that I actually can watch or ask you all questions and get a lot of information from you within a 10 to 15-minute period of time, and it's more effective than the other format. Then there's a 20-point intervention paper that I'll discuss a little bit later, and then another oral final exam. I am going to stop the broadcast now because I need to go and do something, and then I will come back and so I'll make a second broadcast in a little bit.